Okay, I want to do a video for you on lever action, specifically the 30-30. And the three I think are most popular rifles, the Henry, the Winchester, and the Marlin. Now, what I have here are two of the three, and I'll get into that. I have a Marlin. I do not have one of the newer production Marlins. I do hear from the quality things that the newer ones now have worked out most of the bugs. This one is one from 1976. And we'll get into that. And then I have a Winchester 94. This one is from 1981 and is still a top eject. So I'll get into the comparisons of all three, being that I've had them all. And I'll start with the Winchester, some of the pros and cons of each in comparison. Winchester 94, the thing I love about it, and I don't know how well this video will pick up with the light and things in here, it's very slim. It feels great in the hands. And its balance point is right about in the middle. So when you're hunting and you grab the gun like this, it balances incredibly well in a hold like you would use all day while you're hunting, walking through the woods. These guns are unloaded. I do have this dummy round to run through them all. The primer's already been hit and there's no powder in them. The one thing, the new angle ejects, not a big deal. The old ones here, you can't scope them. So I have hunted with this. I don't a ton because sometimes where I hunt, and especially since we have antler restrictions, you gotta see what you're shooting for sure as far as the amount of points. I like the idea of the scope. But I have hunted with this and it feels amazing walking around through the woods. They load through the side gate. It's very smooth and easy. The action is very smooth. And you'll notice it'll eject out the top, which can be a little bit of a pain because it's going to come right at my head. Not the biggest deal to me, maybe a pain to some. It'll launch back towards your face when you eject. I've had no problems with this gun. This screw has gotten loose on me before and it causes the loading gate to act funny. You just tighten it. I love this gun. It's actually very accurate as far as hunting accuracy. Comparing that to the Marlin you start getting some more weight. Its balance point also is not quite as good as the Winchester. You notice it's about here, about the same as the Winchester, but the lever design, you can't get your hand around it nearly as comfortable while you're hunting. You're grasping the hump of the hump of the lever. Still very handy gun. Once you scope it like I have, I think you're taking some of the handiness away. But overall, love the gun. I've hunted with this several times. This is also plenty accurate. This also loads through a side gate. This is a little, bite your fingers a little bit. It's probably like something you could file down. Loads extremely smooth. The Marlin loads smoother than the Winchester. The action cycle's smoother. You'll notice it will eject out the side. This makes it, well, scope use definitely easier. But when you're, really letting them go, they're not flying back at your face. They're shooting out the side, which is kind of nice. This has a micro groove rifling. Between the two, there's not really actually very much accuracy difference. I think a lot of it has to do with the trigger on the Marlin. It's so-so, which you get out of a lever action typically. The Winchester, which I bought this used. I have two top ejects before they did a rebounding hammer. I've got that dummy round in there. This trigger is like a hair trigger. You barely squeeze and it's gone. I was like, really? I forgot. The Winchester, you also have to, there's a little, you can see right there, you have to depress that. It's a little awkward trying to not block the trigger now. Here. The trigger on this thing is unreal. Did someone tinker with it? I don't know. But it's amazing. I also have a beat up 94, which its trigger is also great. Now we do have, my father has a rebounding hammer design. Triggers are not nearly as good. Worse than this Marlin. This Marlin's trigger, you don't have to have that lever squeezed in to press like you do the Winchester. It's like an extra little safety thing on the Winchester. Marlin's, you don't got to hold the lever shut. Fire. Much heavier. It's almost double the poundage. So you will also see I'm not working the levers fast. I have zero problems with ejection or cycling of the action, because a lot of times you got to really work in action. These two designs, I haven't found that. You can go fast. You can barely move them. Still completely fine. Which leads me to the third rifle that is not here, is the Henry. In comparison to these two, there's a reason I don't have the Henry anymore. It's heavy. Winchester by far the lightest and handiest. Next in line would be the Marlin. Take the scope off the Marlin, it starts creeping up there to the Winchester, but everything on the Marlin is a little thicker, the wood, a little heavier. The Henry, definitely the bulkiest of them all. As far as the smoothness of the action, to me the Henry feels no smoother than a Marlin. Winchester the least smooth of them, although I've never had a malfunction out of a Winchester. The Henry, it feels identical to the Marlin, and actually it looks like they almost copied a Marlin as far as the action. The difference being the Henry loads through a tube, kind of like a 22. And the reason I don't have the Henry here is I've sold it. But the Henry, you load through a tube, you pull the brass, it drops down in, you lower it. This is what I didn't like versus loading through the gate. When you pull down the tube, sometimes you had to really shake it and shimmy it to get it around the cartridges. I'd say at least half the time in bringing down the tube, it would pop that lever as you're trying to shove the tube down. I don't know why, never took the gun apart to find out, because I was getting frustrated with the gun. Once it did that, it would jam the gun and you had to dump your rounds back out. And I learned you had to hold this shut while pulling the tube down, which was a complete pain. The other thing with the Henry was, I'll demonstrate here with this Marlin, I load around in the chamber. You're hunting, whatever the situation may be. Put this on half cock. Your lever pops open. It hits something in the woods. Your first thought is, I need to close the lever to get off a shot. Close the lever, hammer back, bang. The Henry does not work in that way. If you pop the Henry open, you can't close it. This lever will not close. Something in here gets jammed, or I don't know if something, another shell comes out and hits a lifter or something. You can't close it. You must eject that round and bring in a new one. For hunting, I dismiss it immediately for that. I don't know if it's something they can fix. I've seen it before. Was hoping mine wouldn't be like that, and it was. The other thing, well, when we got the Henry, it didn't even fire at first. Its firing pin would not strike the primer. So it got sent back to Henry. They sent it back. It's just the first gun I've ever owned that wouldn't fire, especially from new. I couldn't believe that. But you're watching this Marlin, the ejection will throw it out to the side. and I'll do it slow. The Henry works, like I said, it's almost a copy of the Marlin's design. And this will typically jam up a lever gun working it really slow. Still completely fine. The Henry, its ejection is extremely weak, where the cartridge just rolls out the side of the gun. It barely clears the ejection port and falls out. I've seen this on several YouTube videos. If you look at Henrys, pay attention to that. Whether it be the 30-30, 357, 44, they barely fall out. And ours, half the time, would eject so weak that you would throw the lever open and have to shake the gun to get the bullet out. So needless to say, the Henry did not last long with us. It could be we got a fluke of a bad one. It made me sour towards them, and as I watch other YouTube videos, I see similar things happening. As far as the weak ejection, I don't see them as a hunting rifle. If I was to say I'm picking a hunting rifle, my favorite to carry is hands down the Winchester 94. And if you like iron sights, this would be my pick. It doesn't feel super smooth. You hear the kind of the clickety clack of the action, and you can kind of see the guts come out. I've hunted with it in the rain. I've had to refinish the stock because it got rained on so much. Never had a problem with this rifle. Never had a problem with water getting down in it. It's a beautiful gun. It just feels natural. However, being with visibility, I tend to lead towards the Marlin for practical use because of the scope mount. It's heavier to carry in the woods. It's extremely smooth to cycle. But the scope, a 94 you can mount a scope on a new angle ejects, but this one, an older style, I like it. It's very accurate for me, and I do hand load for it now. But I mean, it can be right up there with the bolt action as far as accuracy. Just got to get over the trigger. Has a half cock for a safety. The Winchester works identical to this. These are the older styles. The new ones do have a button or a tang safety. But I have to say I give the nod to the Marlin as far as practicality because of the scope use. So I hope you found this video beneficial. You can put anything in the comments. Like I said, these are just my examples. There's, it can vary from model to model. But I think if you get a Winchester or a Marlin, you got a winner. This one's one of my favorites to just take to the range and shoot. If someone says grab a 30-30, let's go and shoot, I grab the Winchester. If we're hunting, I take the Marlin simply because of the scope. So, hope you've enjoyed it. I'll work on more videos. Thanks a lot.